This show is brought to you by the Garden Gurus and Evergreen Garden Care. Evergreen Garden Care and their market-leading brands are some of the most trusted consumer brands within the garden care market. They produce high-quality garden care products designed to help people create their own green oasis. Whether it's a garden, a balcony, or potted indoor plants, they want to inspire anyone, anywhere to be able to easily create and maintain their own garden. To find out more about Evergreen Garden Care, head to www.lovethegarden.com. Garden Express are Australia's leading mail-order gardening service, offering a wide range of quality garden products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show you jump online and visit their website.
Well, hello and welcome to the Garden Gurus Live. Happy New Year to you. It's our first week back. It's so nice to have you join us again and to be back answering your gardening questions. I'm Trevor Cochrane and this is our first live show of the year. So it's a great opportunity for you to ask your garden questions. We've got a great show today. Lots of really cool ideas. There's a little bit of stuff going on with gardens all over the country. In some places we've got too much water, too much rain, different problems in other parts, like the west over here, where we've had 5 or 6 days over 40 degrees in the Perth metropolitan area. Gardens and lawns are suffering quite badly. So I'll give you a few solutions through the day or through the next hour, and I'll give you the chance to ask your questions as well. So I'm looking forward to answering them. We have had a few questions come through straight away, but before we get into them, I just wanted to give you a bit of a rundown. If you've ever wondered what your suburb tastes like, well, last year I caught up with the founder of Postcode Honey. His name's John Faherty, and he takes local honey to look the next level. I'll explain what I mean. If your lawns have been suffering through the extreme heat, I've got some great solutions for you. And no doubt over Christmas you've had a great time, but if you're looking at your garden, you might be thinking about some garden gifts or maybe a little bit of shopping to pick up a few bits and pieces. We've got our friends from Garden Express back with us again this series. I'll talk about them a bit later on. Remember, if you've got some questions, please let us know where you're from. It's really important. It does make a big difference to me being able to answer your questions, particularly when we're getting extremes like we have been with regards to weather. As always, we've got prizes to give away thanks to our friends at Fothergills. We've got some packet seeds for you. And what else? Well, it's really important that if you do like what we're doing today, that you share it with your friends. And that's a simple way to do that is for you just to hit like. So hit the like button. We'll get into things straight away because I have a bit of a build-up of questions. And some people have been sending some photographs in. So we'll fly into this one first up. It's Linda. Not sure where you're from, Linda, but you've sent us in some photos, and it's pretty telling. We're going to stick them up on the screen so everybody can see these. Your comments are Happy New Year, Trevor and crew. Thank you very much. Any chance you can tell me why my Gladioli bulbs are doing this? I lifted them from the garden after the last flowering, put them in pots, and they're yellowing. No flowers. The bulbs were all good size too. I did let half of them root on a tray of water just for fun before planting. All looked healthy when you put them into the pots. Now, what has gone wrong? So you can see the photographs up there. On the left, you can see the bulbs that have gone into, or they're really what they call a corm, actually, gone into the tray, and you can see them dropping down their roots. Now, this would have been in a protected environment. As soon as they've gone out and they're in pots in a garden environment, you've got this burning on the foliage, and that burning is caused by a microscopic insect called a thrip. Now, thrips do enormous damage, and I've been spraying my gladdies. I have a lot of gladdies, and I've been spraying my gladdies at home continuously to try and control thrips because we've had a really bad problem with the chili thrip and also with the Western flower thrip doing a lot of damage to them. This is classic thrip damage, and there's a number of really good sprays. What I'm beginning to think might be the best control, however, is probably doing something like as long as your conditions are not too extreme, too hot, a spray with horticultural oil, so eco oil or white oil. they will help you get on top of this. I think you're going to need to do at least 3 or 4 sprays. What will happen is it'll coat the thrips with that oil substance. It basically suffocates them, cleans them off the foliage of the plant. Unfortunately, those plants that you've got there, they're not going to come good, and it's highly unlikely they'll produce flowers this year round. So, sorry, the news is not better for you on that one. It's not great. Kerry has sent us in, and again, Kerry, we're not sure where you're from. You've sent me through a photograph, and it's a bit difficult for me to tell from here. It's actually the foliage that makes me think it is what I think it is. It's quite an unusual plant. It's absolutely beautiful. You can see it there. Now, I think this is called Bolosanthes speciosa, or the wisteria tree. It's an African tree, beautiful racemes of flowers. Now, the angles of the photographs probably don't do that justice, and the I can't quite see them clearly enough. But it's the foliage and the shape of the actual the branches that makes me think it is. This is a real collectible. So it's called Bolosanthes speciosa. The African or the wisteria tree, it's got wisteria-like racemes. Generally, the flowers would be more of a bluey colour, but you can get them pink and a bit of a whitey sort of colour through there. So from what I can see, that's what you've got there, Kerry. I hope that helps. All right, let's keep rolling on because the questions are rolling in, which is great. Laura Jennings is from Dayborough in Brisbane. I've got an array of vegetables in raised garden beds with weed matting separating them from the ground, but I can't keep them alive and thriving and rarely get them into harvesting stage. How do I manage vegetables that are in pots and separate garden beds? Well, in pots and garden beds, when you're in a raised garden bed, the organic matter and material is really important. One of the downsides to putting weed mat down is that it tends to smother out everything, which is great if you want to keep weeds out. However, it also doesn't do a lot of good for the health of the soil. And I'm not a huge fan of using it unless you're in a very almost a commercial kind of environment. It can be used for things like strawberries and keeping pests away and keeping it nice and clean. I would suggest that what should be a lot better to do is to get yourself a few bags of sheep manure. I think sheep's probably the better option of all the options that I'm going to suggest. Cows are a very good one as well. Dig that into your soil. So for garden beds, really enrich it massively right at the moment with that, and then get back planting. Applying a controlled release fertiliser will really help a lot right at the very beginning and getting them established. What's most likely causing your failures is that combination of the soil being sterilised and also a lack of water. So I'm going to suggest that you do both of those things. If you're growing vegetables in pots, and I'm certainly doing some fruit and veg in pots at home myself, good potting mix. Do not compromise on your potting mix. I'll talk about my plant of the week a bit later on, and you'll be blown away. We're doing some stories for a TV series we do called Delish at the moment, and I've got a really good example of the difference between a standard cheap potting mix and a premium potting mix, and the outcomes are enormously different. So I'll show that with you. All right, let's head north. We'll go to the Gold Coast. Glenn is up there, and he's got blueberries that have got yellowish leaves, dark green veins. I've fed them with a roses, gardenias, and azalea and camellia slow-release fertiliser. Any suggestions? Yes, mate. Look, the slow-release fertiliser is probably not going to do it at the moment with regards to these guys. Blueberries are actually growing really strongly right at the moment, and that's why you're seeing the green veins. The green veins is basically a line of iron, so there's a shortage of iron in the soil. The fertiliser you've chosen is the right fertiliser, but not a slow release or controlled release just at the moment. You want something that's going to release a little bit faster, and you want to wash it into the soil. When you apply it, it's really important. Only apply at recommended rates. I can't stress that enough. If you really wanted to get this done, get a turnaround on this really quickly, you could apply sulfate of iron right at the moment as well. That's another option for you. Again, when you put these fertilizers in, wash them into the soil. It's really critical with blueberries. They can be very salt sensitive, and these fertilizers all have salts in them. So if you don't wash it in, get it really soluble, one is they can't take it up, and two is it can do some burning damage to the roots. Wow. Let's keep moving on. Karina is in Narracourt. Is it too late to plant more beans? Did not get a good take. What should I feed them once up? Okay. I have some big crops of beans in my veggie garden at the moment. Lots and lots of growth. Not a huge amount of actual beans being produced just at the moment, and that's because of extreme heat. So that can be a bit of a problem when it comes to sort of getting results out of beans. But look, there's a lot of different bean varieties, and some do very well in quite warm conditions. So my suggestion to you would be that you do go and put them in. But what I would suggest is when it comes to feeding, right at the moment, sheep manure, cow manure, dig it into the soil, give it a week or so to settle, then plant your beans out. You'll get great results. I think you'll find as soon as we get some slightly cooler weather, they should sort of set flower and you'll end up with lots of beans. It shouldn't be a problem. Lynn is in Claremont. Hello, Lynn. Whilst I have a well-established garden, I would like to improve my soil. Thinking of using soil solver. What would that be okay? And if so, how would I apply it, please? Okay, well, it depends on your soil type, Lynn. Now, for those people, this is a national broadcast. Soil Solver is quite a unique product to Western Australia. I know it's in South Australia. I know it's in New South Wales and Victoria. It is a kaolin clay and a bit of a combination of rock minerals and also silt. It is a fantastic product in converting particularly sandy soils into what is almost a beautiful loam. And it's almost cheating, but it's a wonderful product for doing that. And once you've got it right, it does amazing things. Now, the recommended rate for Soil Solver is about something like 7.5 kilos, I think, per square metre in a reasonable soil, dug into the top 100 and maybe 200 mil of soil. It sounds like a lot, but once you basically put this improvement in, you really don't need to do an awful lot to the soil afterwards. It really will transform it. It's almost a permanent sort of change. So you could do that. I've been in really barren sandy soils in the Bassendean sands, which are considered by the World Food Organization as the most barren on the planet. And they have probably required around about 12.5 kilos per square metre. It sounds like a lot because I think those bags are 25 kilos or so. But once you've done it, the change in your soil, the reduction in water consumption, the improvement in growth in your plants will be amazing. So I do think Soil Solver is a good product. I do think it works exceptionally well. It is something that you do need to make an investment in, but it's an investment in the future. Hopefully that helps. Let's head to Queensland. Jenny is in Queensland. Would like to know if it's possible to grow jacaranda tree in a pot? Look, it is, but you're not really going to get the flower that you want or the beautiful structure of the tree. Jacarandas are a large tree, no matter what you do. There's some dwarf varieties, very rare to get your hands on at the moment, but it's not quite the same as growing one in the ground. They really do need to be in the ground. Hopefully that helps. Okay. We have been belting along with your questions, and I don't want you to stop sending them through. Please send them through. Please let us know where you are, your state, your town. Really important. This is important in so many different ways, but one of the things that you'll find is really relevant is things like bees. So, bees, the way they perform in Western Australia versus, say, Victoria or Queensland is quite different. And if you've been wondering what your suburb might taste like, and if you're from WA in particular, you might have heard of this company called Postcode Honey. Really cool little concept. And I caught up with John Faherty last year. Let's have a listen. I'm a massive advocate for bees in the home environment, and certainly we know worldwide bees have been in a bit of trouble, and also that they're responsible for, I think it's something like 1 in every 3 mouthfuls of food that's consumed by a human on the planet. They're a pretty important part of our life, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've heard similar figures. Yeah, some people say up to 50% of all the food we eat is dependent on bees.
And it's really it's the important role of them as a pollinator. Now, the things that affect the health of bees is obviously chemicals and in some cases pests that are actually attacking them. So it's been a big problem. That's why Australia is such an important place in the world, being the big island we are and free of majority of those pests and diseases, and even being very proactive with regards to the chemicals we're using. You do something that's pretty amazing, and I've got my own beehive. I'm up in the Perth Hills in Kalamunda, and one of the things I always marvel is we tend to get sort of 2 harvests a year of honey. One soon after the wildflower season, which is this lovely, light, very floral, pleasant honey, and then after the gums have all come into flower, and particularly when we look at the marri trees, they produce a really thick red honey, and it's a totally different flavour. Always amazes me that you can get such variation in honey.
Yeah, the taste of the honey is down to the nectar that the bees are collecting from, and yeah, I keep bees all over Perth and beyond, and every suburb is completely different. The different mix of trees, and every harvest is different. Even pulling frames, I keep mainly 10 frame hives, and the difference in colour and difference in taste between the individual frames can be huge. Like this is a bit of a transition time in Perth at the moment, where, as you say, we're switching from the wildflowers, and then up in the hills there, depending on where you are, they're probably just finished, or they're probably just moving into starting on the jarrah trees. Which produces a fairly dark honey, and quite woody, and very, very different from the wildflowers that they would have been collecting from.
And I know you've got a slight twang in that accent of yours. I know you've got to have a bit of a Kiwi background somewhere there. The Manuka honey out of New Zealand is obviously world famous as well, right? Yeah,
it is. Yeah, but depending on they've been marketing it for a long time. They've done a lot of research and a lot of very, very clever marketing.
But that's got down to where the bees are foraging, right? So it's in a particular type of plant.
Yeah, the Manuka tree is a leptospermum. I think New Zealand has, just one type. Australia has something like 83. I remember speaking to a guy from, I think it was the University of the Gold Coast, who was a leptospermum expert, and he told me that Australia had, I think it was at least 10 or more types of leptospermum that produced nectar that was more medically active than the New Zealand stuff. So
wow,
it's just a matter of time until the Australian research is there.
I have a friend. Sorry, I have a friend who's got a restaurant on the beach in North Fremantle there, and they've got hives on the roof. And when Eamon first gave me a taste of their honey, I was blown away in that it's got a really salty flavour. And I think there's a theme that I'm kind of leading to here, is that different postcodes effectively produce different flavours of honey, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's because every postcode has a different combination of plants. You can, if you're familiar with South Perth, Applecross, they have a lot of jacaranda trees, for example, introduced, but that produces a lovely light honey at this time of year. Those suburbs produce quite unique honeys. We've had lots of customers comment on some of the coastal honeys from the coastal suburbs. You're talking about that saltiness. It's I assume that that the salt must mix with the nectar somehow, and it ends up being reflected in the honey.
Yeah, well, I imagine some of the plants there are probably active on, also have the capacity of holding salt within their system or even on their foliage. So it's probably that mixture of the bees just being active in around that salty environment. This kind of leads on to your business, which is very, very interesting, and thought it was a great opportunity to talk to you because Postcode Honey has become incredibly popular. Tell us a little bit about what you guys do.
My original goal was to set up hives in each of or in every one of Perth's postcodes, and beyond. You know, ultimately all of WA's postcodes, and who knows, maybe one day we'll go Australia-wide. But yeah, it's basically so that people can taste honey from their local suburb. One of the reasons for doing it was to encourage the number of beehives in suburban and urban environments.
It's a wonderful endeavour, and I think that it's become incredibly popular because people are recognising that honey does have different flavours, and that really gets down to the origins of where it's coming from. So this ability to do that. So how do you identify it with the honey once you've jarred it?
We label all of the honeys with the postcode that it's from, and further to that, we out in the country areas where we can isolate, where we know exactly what plants the bees have been foraging on. We'll label it with a plant variety, you know, such as Marri or Jarrah or Carry. But all the urban ones we label as multifloral, just because you can't control what the bees fly to. They will fly up to 5 kilometres to forage. So in the urban areas, you end up with a real mixture every time. Occasionally dominated by one species, like the jacarandas and applecross. But most of the time, it's a real mixture.
Well, you've got me thinking straight away. I know how beautiful applecross is this time of the year in Western Australia, because it is just, you know, literally avenues and avenues of jacaranda trees and this magnificent purple carpet below them just about now as the flowers start falling. But I've never tried, jacaranda honey before. I'm sure I haven't. What postcode would I be looking at then? How do I get my hands on it?
Sorry, I'm not that good with the numbers. I think it's 6151. But what we tend to do is sell locally. So that would involve a drive to to an Applecross supermarket, for example. That's normally what we do. We sell a range of well-known country honeys, bush honeys, plus the nearest 2 or 3 postcodes. So we try to reserve it to the locals, and we find that they sell better in the local supermarkets anyway.
Yeah, I bet. I just think it's such a brilliant initiative, mate. Tell me about the benefits of honey for people with allergies.
We get lots of feedback from customers swearing that their hay fever has been either cured or helped a lot by eating local honeys. I've done quite a bit of reading and haven't been able to find any published scientific evidence. All I've got to go on is just feedback from our customers. But we've literally had dozens, if not hundreds, of beautiful emails and letters talking about really fantastic results.
It's incredible, isn't it? And it probably makes a lot of sense. And we're talking about a product that's 100% natural, isn't it? There's no reason for us to do anything to honey. All we do is extract the honey, which involves scraping the wax coating off the top of it, just to allow the honey to pour out. We pop it into a centrifuge, spin it, and then run it through a filter just to remove the odd bee leg, bits of wax, and anything else that may have ended up. That's about as natural as it gets. And of course, the great thing about supporting Postcode Honey is you are supporting a local business and producer, which I think you guys have got a great concept, mate. It really is one very good. Obviously, it's encouraging that we've got good pollination in our suburban gardens by seeing more beehives out there, which is wonderful. But of course, it's educating us as well on all the different flavours that you can get, and of course those seasonalities and the flora varies by area and region, and this brings a new complexity and understanding of the benefits of honey to the food that we're eating, but also obviously to the taste and the flavours that we're enjoying. So look, thanks so much for joining us, John. Well done. What a great job.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much, Trevor.
Well, what an interesting tale that one is. John is quite a fascinating fellow. I love what they're doing. I love this idea of local honey, local produce, and you actually being able to have it. And I think the big take home that I have from that particular story is actually about the benefits of honey for people who suffer from things like hay fever or any of those kinds of allergies. And that is that if you're consuming the honey from the local area, you're actually ingesting those pollens and building up some natural resistance in the right way to actually reducing the impact of them on your body's reaction. So I think it's quite an interesting story, and certainly as these concepts develop and roll out right across the country, it's something we should be supporting, all of us individually. So, which is why I wanted to bring that particular story to you. All right, we have got lots of questions flowing through. Some coming from our YouTube channel, some coming from our Facebook page, and when you do post your questions, or if you listen to an answer, please hit the like button. It shares it with your friends. It gets more people interactive and things happening, which would be great to have more people involved. Okay, where do we start? Lisa is in Templestowe in Victoria. Hello, Lisa. You've come to us via YouTube. What's the best way to freeze carrots? Pretty much as soon as you get them out of the ground is the best way to go. I would suggest that you actually process them. So give them a good clean, cut them up into the sizes that you want. So either in strips or in little blocks, and then snap freeze them. It's actually one of the best ways to retain all the goodness of the produce. Certainly don't leave them for any period of time out of the ground. Hopefully that helps. Sorry, that was a mix-up. That was actually Rick's question. Rick Thillian, we're not sure where you're from. You came to us via YouTube. Lisa, your question from Templestowe, Victoria, was about your apricot tree. Sorry. It's over 4 meters. I want to prune it back to manageable height. What's the best time to prune? I've got exactly the same situation. So I've got a dwarf tree. It's produced phenomenal amounts of fruit, and I'm about to give that a prune. But I've got a traditional apricot, which is very, very big. Could not get the fruit off the top of the tree this year round. So the birds have had a bit of a feast with it. I'm going to prune that back now. Now is the time to bring it back down in height. And really, in Perth in particular, February is the hottest month of the year. There is a bit of a risk that you might get a bit of burning, but these trees should respond pretty well as long as you've got water up to them and everything, and you give them a feed after you've pruned. And all that new growth will be where the fruit comes from next year. So now's the time to reduce it down and take out any crossing over branches or any branches that have got problems as far as health goes. So hopefully that helps you. And also Rick with freezing carrots. Sorry, mate. Kathy, Ellen Brook in Hunter Valley in New South Wales has come to us. Davidson plums, got leaves burning. You've covered it with shade cloth, but to help revive it, you've also used sea salt. What else would I recommend? First of all, Kathy, the Davidson plum, to put some context into it, this is a rainforest tree, so it's expecting sort of more humid conditions, less dry, exposed conditions. It would normally be an under canopy tree, so it's growing up in the rainforest under other trees before it finally makes its way through the top of the rainforest canopy. To put that into context, that just means that it probably needs a little bit of protection for a while, but it will harden up if you can protect it just a bit. Sea salt's a great way to reduce both transplant stress, frost stress, but also the damage done by excess heat. And applying it over the foliage is probably the key, not around the roots. So that's what I would recommend. There's not a lot else you can do. It's really a case of try and protect it. If it's a small tree, protect it. Maybe if you've got something else that you can plant around the outside that's a temporary cover tree, then I would do that. Hopefully that'll help. Renee is in Melbourne. Hello, Renee. My Phalaenopsis orchid has lost its flowers. Do I cut the spike off? What's the best way to get it to flower next year? Actually, Renee, don't cut the flower off or the spike off, because it could produce more flowers from that spike. It's not an unusual thing with Phalaenopsis where they'll have a second run of flowers coming off that. So I would leave it. If it starts to go brown and die back, then cut it off, cut it back down near the base there. Using a liquid fertiliser is the best way to go with Phalaenopsis, and to water them from the bottom upwards. So not over the foliage, but in actual fact from the bottom in a tray. So fill it up with water, let capillary action lift the moisture back into the pot. The plant will take up what it needs, and when that dries out, that tray dries out again, then you just top it up. And it's probably 1 or 2 waters a week, and it's probably only half a cup or so. So hopefully that helps. And it's a flower promoting liquid fertilizer. There's a few of them out there, so have a look. You don't want to put that into context. If you use something like Thrive, so there's Thrive for flowers and fruit, that's very, very high K, which, potassium is really good at promoting fruit growth and flowering. But if you're in a situation where you use the traditional Thrive, it's a very high percentage of nitrogen, which means it's going to produce a lot of foliage growth, but not a lot of flower. So that's why I'm saying make sure you get the right fertilizer. Okay, shall we keep rolling along? Leanne's in Victoria. I've got a clivia with a seed pod that's been on the plant for 2 years. I have organised a bag over it. How long before it opens, the seed pod? Well, it should be getting pretty close. I would think 2 years is a long time. Mine would normally be 12 months. But what you should see is it should turn orange or red in colour. And when it does that, it's ripe. And at that point, you could pick it off and pop it into a paper bag and just sit and let it dry. And that seed will mature in the actual fruit. And you can break that open and later on plant those seeds yourself. So hopefully that's going to help you there, Lee. And Jenny is in Brisbane. Hello, Jenny. I was wondering if it's possible to grow a jacaranda tree in a large pot. Well, it is, but jacaranda trees are a beautiful tree. They're a big tree. And that's really why you need to be planting them into the ground. So I would recommend that you do put it into the ground. Large pot, you're never really going to get the benefits of a jacaranda in that sort of environment. Kim, we're not sure where you're from. Please remember to tell us, folks, where you're from. It does make a big difference. State and ideally town or city. I have what I believe to be a nectarine tree. It's heavy with fruit. It's been attacked by fruit fly. What can I do to stop this from happening next year? Fruit fly is a nightmare. Really is a really difficult thing to control, and it depends on where you are in the country with regards to how you go about it. But it's actually more a combined process if you want to get on top of it. So you want to use baits and you want to use traps. So the traps, generally those yellow sticky traps, the fruit fly will go to those and stick to those. You can get them with protective frames now to make sure that, things like geckos and skinks and little birds don't get stuck to them. So that's an important thing. The baits are generally going to use Vegemite in the base. So they use something with yeast in it. The yeast will attract them in. And then if you've got just a little drop of insecticide in there, that will kill them off. And that should give you some control. But to be quite honest, those two things on their own is not really enough. So there is a product that I use. It's called Success, and it is extremely effective in also controlling. It's a spray. It's a natural biological control for grubs. So that should help you get on top of it if you use all three. Unfortunately, if the fruit fly damage is really bad at the moment, you're going to have to wait till next year before you have a go at it again. So do it when the fruit is just starting to form and develop, and as it starts to get mature, just weekly in the build up to that maturity, and then stop spraying basically when the fruit starts to colour, and then you want at least probably 14 days before you actually harvest it after that. So hopefully that helps. Did you know that WA, this has just been the hottest Christmas on record, and no doubt there'll be lawns in this part of the world that have really suffered as a result of that. I'm not sure how it is in your part of Australia, but at the moment that's been a big challenge. I know in Sydney and Melbourne to a lesser extent, it's been quite wet and quite moist, so that's not much of a problem for you. But wet and moist causes another problem, and that can be an additional patchy problem caused through fungal infections, etc. The real key to the whole thing is actually getting your lawn to grow really strongly. It's a really important thing. A thick, lush lawn will literally smother out weeds, and of course, if you've got lots of sunny days, which we have, that's a pretty big if you look at that, you can see this lawn that we're showing you here. It's a pretty big indicator the lawn's going to be lush, healthy, strong, and look beautiful, that beautiful rich green colour. But if you're starting to get sort of a bit of a dull look to your lawn, if it's starting to brown off in patches, you do need to do some things about it. One is you should be thinking about putting a wetting agent down. Vitally important. Wetting agents do make the world of difference to the absorption of moisture in the actual soil itself. You want consistent soil moisture levels, and you don't want any patches in there. The second thing you need to do is probably to liquid feed it. If it's been damaged, liquid feed it now, and you'll get this flush of growth come through. And one way to really bring your lawn back really quickly, if it's not too bad, you really want to get a nice green colour, is to apply a very fast-acting liquid fertiliser. And there's one from Scott's that I wanted to highlight. It's called Extreme Green. Now, it's part of the Lawn Builder range. It's a slow-release fertiliser that eliminates waste through runoff and leaching, and it prevents burning. It'll feed for up to 3 months, but it's got a fast action in it. So it's got this highly soluble nitrogen, and this really gives you, literally within 2 to 3 days, you'll see the difference in the lawn. It's a really impressive thing. Now, it's not a chemical, it's natural nitrogen, but it's just reacting really quickly. So it's child and pet friendly. And there's no risk of scorching your lawn either, which is also sometimes a problem if you're using things like urea. Extreme Green's got less than 0.5% of phosphorus in it too, which means you can use it safely near waterways, near ponds, near creeks, near the ocean without worrying about that phosphorus getting in and causing algal blooms and problems for some of the natural animals in that environment. It really is a pretty amazing product, this, and it's one that I would suggest that you really do think about applying right at the moment. The combination of fast action and controlled release action, that 3-month action, is quite unique. So it's called Scott's Lawn Builder Extreme Green. Keep your eye out for it. It's available through leading garden retailers. I think you'll find it in your local Bunnings store. I've been spent like the weekend. We were pickling cucumbers. We've been making apricot jam because we've had so many apricots, and we've been picking lots of tomatoes. And I wanted to show you some of the tomatoes that I picked. I just went out and grabbed some this morning. So there's your classic money maker. It's a fantastic tomato, really productive plant, really good. You might have seen, if you've been following our Facebook page, you might have seen on the weekend we showed you some that maybe are a little bit imperfect. I literally put up a photograph of this one. Unfortunately, a lot of people have got dirty minds. Look at that. Now, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you see that? Of course, I think when you look at something like that, the first thing that comes to mind is delicious. Look at that. Beautiful. But unfortunately, for some people, they thought it was bottom. Now, this is the funny thing with fruit and veg, is that you do get some pretty unusual shaped things. I'd love to see your photographs, actually. There were some pretty funny ones popped up over the weekend. This is one of the beefsteak varieties. That's another one you can see. I just picked that a little bit early, but I wanted to show you just how gorgeous they are. And then we've got a whole bunch. So this is green zebra. Look at the color of that. That is a gorgeous, gorgeous tomato, and a bit different. It's a little bit more tart, a little less sweet. And then we've got this one here, if I can grab a couple and show you. Tigerella, really beautiful little stripes through the fruit, attractive. And then we go to the sort of, I suppose, those varieties that are the smaller varieties, so the cherries and the pears. Yellow pear, sweet as anything. I should be showing you that. Sweet as anything, absolutely gorgeous. And then this one, the black cherry. Probably one of the nicest tomatoes. When you put them into a salad, they are absolutely delicious. And of course, the Romas, the little Roma varieties. We've got a whole bunch of them. Now, these are all types of tomatoes. There's variations in the varieties, but they all perform so well. And now's the time to be harvesting and also planting out. So I've done a bit of a story for the coming Delish series, where you'll be able to see some tips on getting some great results for an autumn harvest. So whatever you're planting now is going to produce fruit in the autumn. Important thing to think about with tomatoes is they are a fruit. So you want to be using a fruit fertilizer, not a vegetable fertilizer. Vegetables about producing foliage. tomatoes being a fruit, you want to produce more flower and subsequently larger size fruit. So we are going to give a few more tips on growing tomatoes. They are really good for you. I do want to leave you with one little bit of advice. Tomatoes are rich in this red color. It's a beautiful plant hormone called lycopene. Lycopene is a rich antioxidant, unbelievably good for human health, for cellular health, but particularly for prostate health for men. And there's been some great research done with tomatoes that suggests that one tomato about that size, that's about 40 grams, about a handful, consumed per day by men, will reduce your risk of prostate disease by about 90%. It's 90% through changing your diet and having these in. Now, when you grow your own at home, they taste so much better than the ones that you buy in the shops because they're often picked green, those ones in the shop, and allowed to ripen or gas ripened to get that red colour. When they're sun ripened like this, they're sweet, the sugars are in them, unbelievably good for you. So they really are something that I think that we should all be thinking about growing more of at home. They're easy to grow and they really do so much good for our general health. And gents, just for those of you that don't like tomatoes very much, one tomato a day is not one of those. It's one of those. Okay, just want to clarify it. Really important. Okay, if you've got any questions about tomatoes, there's a few that have been flowing through actually. Then don't hesitate to send your questions through because sometimes you can have problems and sometimes you can have bad seasons. I think I had a pretty bad season last year. Didn't get as many as I would like. This year, I reckon we've probably picked 10 kilos and we've probably got another 30 or 40 kilos to come through the rest of the season. So it's a lot of fruit, more than the average family could ever consume. But we make tomato sauces with them, pastes, and literally every single day there's tomatoes like this going into cooking, particularly these ones. These are fabulous when you're cooking with them. They really are delicious. And they're great just with a pasta. So literally throwing it into your pasta, cooking it all together, getting the flavors. They're very juicy. Get all those beautiful flavors through and you enjoy your food so much better. So ask your questions. All right, shall we keep moving? I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll just talk to you a little bit about our partners in this program. So we're very lucky. We have the guys from Love the Garden who have been a fantastic supporter of this particular format of programming and also the Garden Gurus TV show. Absolutely brilliant. They support us each week and they've got a great range of products. So all their products do enormous amounts of good in the garden. So it's very easy for me to be able to talk about their products quite confidently that they're going to perform for you and to explain the enormous amount of work. Their potting mixes, for example, their Osmocote potting mixes, the amount of science that goes into a bag of potting mix is staggering. So I've got a lot of things that I can tell you about and it will really help you get results in your backyard. The other side of things is actually being able to get your hands on great plants, great products, and that's where I think the world has changed dramatically. Once upon a time, we had to go to the hardware store or we had to go to the garden centre, but you can do it online these days, and that's where our friends from Garden Express have been absolutely instrumental in their support of what we do and in what they do to support particularly people who have been in lockdown, which has been such a big part of our lives. It's a chance for you to go online and shop and buy things that you've really fallen in love with, or plants that are seasonal and getting them delivered direct to your door. It's never been a safer way to get your hands on some pretty amazing plants and products. Now, Garden Express have been delivering plants to customers Australia-wide, believe it or not, for 70 years. They were well and truly ahead of their time. David Van Berkel and his family are generational horticulturalists who've lived and grown plants and bulbs and flowers in the Dandenongs in Victoria for generations now. I think it's at least 3, and the next generation's on their way through. They're a really lovely family business. They do a great job. They've got an extensive range of perennials, including shrubs, trees, potted plants. Of course, there's the bulbs, and then there's edible plants. The nursery out there, I'd love to take you for a bit of a walk through at some point in time. It's about, the site itself's about 9 acres, and the nursery's about 4.5 acres under production. And then they've got a farm, and the farm's where they grow everything in the field. So there's all sorts of things going on. And when you place your order, It'll be collected from the production area and taken into a dispatch igloo. And then the packing team will select the best plants for delivery to you, and they put them into some really cool packaging so the plants never get hurt. It's a really good way to ship. I mean, in the old days, there was so much risk of plants being damaged. They have this bubble protective wrapping and things that really make sure the plants ship well. And of course, it's always about getting the highest quality plants right from the beginning. Really, they probably expanded a few years ago, and they work with a lot of other growers and plant breeders. So they're now introducing a lot of new plants that we've never seen before, or things that are rare and quite unique. And that's a unique opportunity for you to now get something that you just can't get anywhere else anyway. And of course, as I said, they pack it up in these special cases and boxes, and it can be anything from small tubes right through to fruit trees. It's quite amazing what they can do. And the great thing about this is they have a 100% guarantee. So if you're not satisfied with your order, you're backed by the Garden Express customer service guarantee. It's a really good company, great Australian gardening company, leading. Really, they're doing stuff that's sort of world leading. So great chance for you to get your hands on some beautiful plants. Now's the time to do it. To do it, all you do, and to go and shopping, is to head to gardenexpress.com.au. Place your orders, and David and Rowan and all the team will have those off to you in the very near future. Thanks very much to both companies for your support of this program. All right, shall we keep answering your questions? I think we should, because there's a lot coming through from Queensland today, I've noticed. Don't be shy if you're in South Australia or Victoria. I think we're getting a few now starting to flow through from Victoria, and Sydney, of course, as well. I'd love to hear from all of you. Belinda is on the Gold Coast. I have young tomato seedlings that are getting eaten at ground level. Could it be cutworms? I've tried broken eggshells, but it seems to still happen. Any suggestions? It's probably either slugs or it could be cutworm if it's coming right off at ground level. That's not an unusual thing, actually, to see that sort of damage. So broken eggshells is probably not going to hack it, to be quite honest. You can do some things like you can put things like crushed biogenic amorphic silica, or you could use something like talcum powder around the outside. It depends on how much rain you're getting at the moment. But if it's reasonably dry, and I think it should be, you could be in that situation where you could use that. There are some chemical treatments, so you can soak the ground, and you could use something like Baythroid, which is a good solution to those kinds of problems. And if it is something like snails or slugs, then using bluestone is a really good way to stop them from getting to your seedlings. All you want to do is get them started, because it doesn't take long, probably 2 to 3 weeks, and then there's nothing going to damage them or set them back after that. So it's a very short-term fix you need there, Belinda. I hope one of those options might work for you. Okay. Blizitz is joined us from Victoria via YouTube. How should I grow cabbage? My friends say they should be planted one by one, but I think you should grow them together in bunches. Who is right? Do you also have any other tips? Okay, Blizitz. Cabbage, as a general comment, a lot better if you grow them singly. That's the first thing I'm going to say. But you can grow 2 or 3 of them together, and they will compete against each other, but they'll be smaller plants, okay? So if you want bigger cabbage, then single plants. If you want more cabbage being produced, then putting 2 or 3 seedlings together will work. In fact, a lot of seedlings, you'll find there's 2 or 3 plants per punnet if you're buying them in punnets in each of the little tubes. So that's probably the only advice I can give you. What I would recommend is there's effectively a root promoting fertilizer called potato e-manure. Now, it's not for all members of the brassica family, but I would suggest that you do think about using that particular kind of fertilizer. What you're wanting to do is you want to feed the soil. You don't want to put too much nitrogen on these guys in the early stages. You want to get them established. You want the root system to get really strong. And then at about week 3, then go to a liquid fertilizer over the foliage, and you will get a crop really quickly. Cabbage can grow quite quick. And the best cabbage are, of course, those that are picked young. So Hopefully that helps you. If you've got any more questions, keep asking. Barnett is in Perth. Hello, my young fruit trees are being decimated by grasshoppers. What can I do, please? Barnett, there's a product out there. It's a brand bait. It's designed specifically for crickets and grasshoppers. It comes from a company called David Gray. It's called David Gray Cricket and Grasshopper Brand Bait. You'll find it in leading garden centres, and it's the brand baits are one of the best ways to control grasshoppers. They will go to the brand bait before they'll go to the greens. You literally spread it around the base and the plant, and you even put it over the foliage, and they'll eat that. And when they do, it takes care of them. Jenny is in southeast Melbourne. Hello, hi Trevor. Happy New Year. Of a blushing bride protea. Hi Jenny. Blushing bride proteas are gorgeous. You've placed it into a ceramic pot, and the plant after a few months started to droop and the foliage has started to brown. Help. I've recently replanted it into the ground to try and save it. Any advice would be lovely. Jenny, they can be a bit sensitive, and unfortunately they can turn their toes up pretty quickly. The trick with them is to have a really good free draining soil. So they prefer it on the dry side to the really wet side. So you need to make sure that that the soil is draining. Now, if you plant it into the ground, hopefully it's mounded, or if your soil's not heavy, it is free draining. Keep the water up, but I would apply a little bit of seaweed at the moment, and sea sol is a great way to go. Liquid feed that, soak it into the ground, and fingers crossed. Jenny, there is one thing. If you've got a fungal disease of them, and they are prone to root rot diseases, there's a product from Yates called Anti-Rot. And sometimes giving it a bit of a preventative or even preemptive application is not a bad thing to do. So maybe a bit of a soak of that in the soil would do the world of good too. Tyson is a regular, joins us on the show on a regular basis. Hello, Tyson. Welcome back and Happy New Year to you. You're from Baronia. Where can I buy soil to grow Mr. Fothergill's packet seeds in? What's the best soil? Well, it depends what you're doing there, mate. You want to look for ideally a soil improver if it's going into the ground, and then mix that into the ground. This time of the year, I actually use sheep manure. So we literally just got big 100 litre bags of sheep manure, spread it around, cultivate it into the top, I suppose 100 mil or so, about that deep of the soil, wet it. And what happens is the sheep manure absorbs all that moisture, and then it breaks and it starts to disperse the organic material into the soil. And you get I suppose, the most perfect environment for seeds to germinate. It does depend on what type of seeds. This time of the year can be quite risky with seeds because of the drying effect of really hot, dry conditions. So keeping the moisture up to them is really important. Hopefully that helps. Tella, another great friend of ours. We've sold our house in Aberdeen, Upper Hunter, New South Wales, and we're now living on the farm full-time at Leadville in the beautiful Warrumbungle Shire and Central Tablelands in New South Wales. That part of the world is just God's country. What climbing veggie should we plant now, Trev? Tala, I don't know whether you've thought about this, but it's not truly a vegetable, but you treat it like a vegetable. But there's probably a number of things that could sort of go in at the moment, and climbing squash is certainly one. So the loofah squash, the spaghetti squash, they're both fantastic. The other one I'm thinking of is, and I've got to think of it because I've got a blank on my mind teller. It is the And there we are. We're back. Sorry about that. We had a little technical problem. We've been trying to work out how to solve it, but we're back, which is great because we've got so many questions coming through. Thanks for your understanding with that. It happens every once in a while. Maybe not the best start to the new year, but we'll try and avoid those in the future. All right, let's keep rolling along. I think my next question, I'll finish with Teller because Teller, you're midway through talking about the climbing veggies, and I suggested, probably those squash are a great thing just at the moment. Really good way to go. This is literally what I am planting in my place. And of course, chocos. They are absolutely fantastic. And you do treat that fruit more like a vegetable. So hopefully that helps, Teller. Beans are always good depending on how big a plant you want. And folks, if you've got any suggestions, don't hesitate to share them because this is all about sharing ideas together. Okay, we're going to the ACT. Johnny, hello. It's lovely to have you join us. It's nice to have the ACT with us. I hope everybody is well. What is the best product to use on lawn to break down compacted soil? Okay, now I know aerating is the best method, but I don't currently have the time. Can I use clay breaker, or is there a good soil wetter conditioner better? No, actually, look, clay breaker is the solution. And garden fork, and get out and just walk around with a garden fork and just poke as many holes in that lawn as you possibly can, and then applying clay breaker or gypsum at about 1 kilo to 1.5 kilos per square metre. Wash it into those holes. It will get inside and it'll improve the structure of the soil. You will probably need to do this over a period of time. So you might need to do it over 3 or 4 times over a 12 or 18 month period, but it should change actually the structure of the top 100 or 200 mil of your soil, and that should improve drainage and the health of your lawn as well. Carol is in Coffs Harbour. Hello, Carol. I think I have army grub in my garden. They're feasting on my clivias, almost anything that's green. Help. Okay, so army grub is lawn armyworm, and it's generally it's a soil-based thing, so you wouldn't see it unless you're soaking the ground. So the solution, if you want to see whether you've actually got this, is to wait until dusk, soak the ground. I mean, drench it so there's water sitting on top. They will all come to the surface. They hate it. And if that is the case, then you'll know that you've definitely got them, and you should treat them this way. And that is, you should be applying, and my suggestion would be that you apply it now, Baythroid. Now, Baythroid is a really good control of lawn grubs, and that should get them off your existing plants. But if it's the foliage that's being damaged, it's highly unlikely that it's lawn armyworm. So it's more likely to be a grub. And then if that's the case, then I would be thinking about one of the grub controllers like Dipel, for example, which would be a very effective way to get control of that particular problem. Hopefully it helps. Neil is in Sydney. Hello, Neil. Great to have so many of our East Coast friends joining us. Hopefully we get a few in from Adelaide soon, because I don't think we've had too many South Australian questions today, but I'm sure they'll be coming. Neil in Sydney, I've got a 6-year-old forest pansy that's bloomed only outside, that has bloomed only outside leaves this year instead of its normal thick growth. Okay, that's unusual. Could it be root related or what? I've recently fertilized, don't want to lose it as it's an outstanding tree. Not really sure what your exact problem here is. Cercis forest pansy, this is the Judas tree. It's a pretty tough tree. What it does like is nice dry conditions during summer. What Sydney's had is a lot of moisture, and that could be causing some of the problems that you're seeing. So when you say is it root related, it may be related to roots, but maybe because of the moisture levels. It is an outstanding tree. The trick with it is to try and avoid it getting too wet. And a good way to get that moisture off the root system is just to lay some plastic around the base of the tree. If you can put a few strips of plastic away, it'll run the water off on the outside edge of the tree, and at least try and give those roots a little bit of reprieve. It is a bit of a challenge this time of the year when you've got so much rain and it's unseasonal and it's wet and it's humid. These kinds of trees, which do prefer it being quite cool, they can really struggle a little bit. So you might just be having a bad year. In my area, we had a much colder winter, for example, Neil, and my frangipanis have really struggled to come back. They're starting to, but those extreme conditions, it's amazing how just a few degrees or a few mils of rain can make such a difference to the general health of the tree. So I'm hoping that that's the answer that you need. Sandra, speaking of South Australia, here we go. Sandra is from South Australia. I have many varieties of geraniums and pelargoniums, but I never know when to cut them back. Okay, so the trick with them is when the geraniums get too leggy, cut them back. Don't be scared to cut them back. Pelargoniums, you don't want to do it in the sort of mid-winter, early spring period, because you're going to cut all the flowers off. The rest of the year, feel free to get out and give them a prune. In fact, right now it's not a bad time, Sandra. So give them a bit of a clip now. Won't hurt. It's better to prune them regularly than it is to prune them once every 2 or 3 years really hard, because that's when you end up cutting back into that old wood, and more often than not, they may not come back or they may not be very happy. Hopefully that helps. Okay, Scott's from Beaconsfield. I'm going to make the assumption that this is Beaconsfield in Victoria. Please remember to tell us the state, because there's a few Beaconsfields around Australia. I've got 5 water halcyon plants that have been attacked by some sort of bug. The leaves are looking terrible. What's the best solution for this? Cut all the affected foliage off? Question mark. Well, look, Scott, it does depend. Water halcyon sometimes are affected by a pittosporum beetle, and that may be what you've got. But what I would love you to do for me is to take a photograph fairly close up, if you could, of the foliage. And if it's like a bubbling kind of effect, it's highly likely, or it's like almost a scarifying effect, it's more than likely that it is going to be a pittosporum beetle, which can impact them. Pruning the foliage off won't hurt the plant, because that foliage is damaged and it's never going to get better. So doing that will stimulate new growth, which is a good thing. The trick is, however, to try and control this bug in the future. And I'm not really sure what the easiest solution is, except for to be really vigilant and be prepared to spray. There's Baythroid Advanced is a great treatment for many of these kinds of bugs. There's a few different sprays, and look, the trick is probably to talk to your local garden centre and take maybe a sample of the foliage in a plastic bag that's sealed in, and share that with them, and they'll be able to probably give you a bit better advice than I am at the moment, because I am guessing until I see a photo. Sandy is in Adelaide. We're back in Adelaide. It's great. Everybody from South Australia is starting to flow through. And unfortunately, we are running. In fact, we've run out of time, but I'll get through these last few questions, and I think we're going to have to come back and answer some more questions for you next week. I've got a lot of different coloured osteospermums. Okay, this is the African daisy, but they all end up turning pink. Can you tell me why and what I can do to prevent this? Now, this is a problem with something we call reversion. So a lot of plants that are hybridized, one of the parents is going to be stronger than the other, and when you get that, often they'll do what we call they'll produce a sport, and the sport usually comes from the base, and it's one of the plants that is, I suppose, more closely related to the parent. Effectively, that'll take over the rest, and that's a problem. That's really quite problematic. Because unfortunately they do this. So those beautiful osteospermums, where you buy those beautiful flowers, they can end up reverting back to one of the parents, and that's usually the pink one, which is the most prevalent variety. Not a lot you can do about it except for just keep planting them. Don't be scared with osteospermums to take cuttings as well. So if you're seeing the varieties that are producing the right flowers, cut from that foliage, plant it into pots. They'll drop roots and produce more plants. And the ones that turn pink, if you don't want them, take them out and put the ones back in that you want. And constantly refreshing osteospermums keeps them looking better and better crops of flowers and so on. So I did mention keep letting us know where you're from. Kathy, unknown, not sure where you're from. My garden's been consumed by wandering dew. Not even Roundup, which I hate using, is killing this stuff. Do I have any advice? Well, look, Roundup will kill wandering dew. It's probably the only solution I have to it in my garden. But the trick with it is that you want to go through and try and knock the plant back as much as you can. So if it's in the garden beds and you can get in and you can hit it with a line trimmer, or you can cut it back a bit, or even break it up a bit, do that. And then when it's really suffering, hit it with a Roundup. That should kill it all off. It's not going to stop any regeneration of seeds. This one of the problems with this plant is it's so prolific with its seed production, And really what you want to do is you want to make sure that as soon as you start to see regeneration of seeds, those little tiny seedlings get hit with some more Roundup. Unfortunately, I could suggest some other treatments. There are some more noxious herbicides, but I'm really reticent to do that. One thing that does knock wandering Jew back a fair bit, but it's not the total solution, is vinegar and salt applications. The salt and vinegar sprays can be a very, very good way to dehydrate this plant and to set it all back, but it won't necessarily kill it off completely. So there's a couple of options for you. Agnes is in Wetherill Park in Sydney. Hello, Agnes. I've got a lime tree and I keep getting leaf curl. I cut them off and now it's on my lemon tree as well. How do I get rid of it? Sprayed it. I've put oil spray on them and it still happens. Agnes, New South Wales is particularly bad for something called citrus leaf miner. It's a little moth and it's active in the early evening, so just on dusk, and it flies around and it lays its eggs, literally stings its little eggs in just under the surface of the skin of new growth. And then as that new growth starts to come out, it causes it to contort, if you like, and deform, because the little egg that's hatched into a larvae is basically eating the goodness. So it twists it and gnarls it and makes it look terrible. What you've got to do is every time you see a new flush of growth, get out and spray some of that. So it's kind of a bit of a challenge, but you wait till you see that new growth, get out and spray just as that new growth occurs, but in the early evening. Do it on a Monday, do it on a Wednesday, do it on a Friday, and do it on a Sunday, and that should stop any problems with that new growth forming and the tree developing the way it should do. Remember, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and that will stop them. And basically what's going on is, one is the oil over the foliage smothers out the eggs that may have been planted, so they suffocate. And two is the moths don't like the stickiness of the oil, so they'll go somewhere else, and they won't do the damage on your citrus. It is the only way to get control of that citrus leaf miner that causes that horrible leaf curl that you're seeing. Hopefully that helps. Yeah, there's no other easy way around it, Agnes. I'm sorry. Christine is our last question for today. She's from Nowra in Shoalhaven, New South Wales. Do you need 2 feijoa trees and 2 avocados for fruiting? Well, feijoa trees, you don't. Feijoas, you can have 1 tree and they'll be prolific. That's fine. With feijoas, remember, it's not just the fruit. The flowers are delicious, edible flowers as well. With avocados, you do need 2 types. Now, that's a whole different thing. Generally, in most situations, I would say now in cities, you don't need it because there's so many avocado trees around, and pollination is such that you'll end up getting good crops. So I hope that from your sake, for your sake, that you've got 2 trees. As far as varieties go, you might just want to check with your local garden centre as to what's coming into flower at the right time if you're going to buy some. So in my garden, I have probably 3 varieties, and I end up with what we call biennial cropping. So one year, one variety will produce quite a significant crop. The other one will produce very few. And then the following year, the other one will produce a big crop, and the other that produced a big crop will rest and produce very few fruit. And it's a nice way to have these. Avocado trees are such great trees to grow, and they're so good. Now, Christine, you also mentioned that you have bees and you've harvested 27 kilos of honey. Wow. How amazing is that? What a great surprise. Well done. That's absolutely awesome. I've just done a story on bees at home for the Delish series. They are such a great addition to any garden. And of course, we've just been talking about pollinating. Bees travel up to 5 kilometres from the hive, and they'll move from one avocado tree to another avocado tree to another avocado tree, spreading that pollen as they go. And of course, that's pollinating your fruit. Hopefully that helps. Wow. First day back, it's 11 past 10. That's 11 past 1 on the East Coast. And here we are. We've run out of time. There are so many questions that have come through. I hope that I've answered yours, but the good news is we will answer any that we've missed next week. Remember, hit the like button with this. Really does help us because it shares the word, and that's a really important thing in getting out to your friends and making sure that people are aware of the good work that we do. We are trying to help you have more gardening success, and that's what it's all about. Robin's going to send some messages to our seed winners. Don't forget, Mr. Fothergill's packet seeds every week. We have 5 winners. She'll let you know after today's show. I'll be back next Monday for another session of the Garden Gurus Live. It's 12 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, 9 a.m. for WA viewers. Remember, if there's any information that you want, if you want to catch up on previous stories from the Garden Gurus, you can go to our website. It's thegardengurus.tv, or check out our YouTube channel, thegardengurus.tv. That is actually a great source of all the videos that we produced from the TV show, so you can kind of watch back and use it as a resource. If you want to listen back to today's live stream or catch up on previous episodes, you can do so through your favorite app, Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Audible. They all have our podcast on there, so it's a chance for you to, I suppose, enjoy it. Big thanks to Robin and to Jimmy for all the technical things, particularly digging us out of a hole when we went off air today. They've done a great job this morning, and all best wishes to all of you guys. Thanks so much for your support. It's great to be back. Happy gardening, everybody. Look forward to seeing you, and Happy New Year. We'll see you again soon.
This show is brought to you by the Garden Gurus and Evergreen Garden Care. Evergreen Garden Care and their market-leading brands are some of the most trusted consumer brands within the garden care market. They produce high-quality garden care products designed to help people create their own green oasis. Whether it's a garden, a balcony, or potted indoor plants, they want to inspire anyone, anywhere to be able to easily create and maintain their own garden. To find out more about Evergreen Garden Care, head to www.lovethegarden.com. Garden Express are Australia's leading mail-order gardening service, offering a wide range of quality garden products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer, so make sure after today's show you jump online and visit their website.
Just admiring this beautiful flower here, folks. It belongs to this lovely Camellia japonica. Isn't that fantastic?
Oh, this looks incredible. I love this homegrown salad. Tell me what flowers you have in it.
It's rocket salad, and I've put nasturtiums and pansies in it.
Now I'm at Mason Mill Gardens up in the Perth Hills. It's one of my favourite destinations.
Germinating plants from seed is easy, and spring is the best time of the year to do it.
I think all that's left to do is I need to go get married.
These guys are one of the most amazing creatures that I've ever seen.
I reckon it's great to have purpose-made plant foods available for all our aquatic plant adventures.
Well, that's it for the whole season. I hope you enjoyed our spring series of the Garden Gurus, and your garden is looking fantastic.